Daniel, we are back.
Alex, we are back.
So it's just the two. Sorry, it's just the two of us today, and I I've been trying to figure out how I want to start the show, and I
Mhm.
ended up at we are back.
We are back. But somehow we are technically not just here, the two of us, because we've had some phantom text
Yes,
on our
in,
doc.
in our Google Doc that we've
Yeah.
added to the show because there has been the most boring three-way trade in the NHL.
Hmm.
You know what? I know we're gonna bring it out. I just want to tell the trade. I want to say it out loud because of how ridiculous it is. This might be the most boring trade in a while. Okay. So it's three teams: Anaheim, Florida, and Detroit. Going to Detroit from Anaheim, Danny O'Regan. I don't know what to say about him. Do you,
He's a
Danny?
center.
Okay, good. Going to Florida from Detroit, Giovanni Smith.
Big body presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And lastly, going to Anaheim. And I know, Daniel, you will have a fact for this guy.
Yes.
Anaheim acquires Michael Del Zotto from Florida.
For like the third time he's on Anaheim. But I think the biggest thing we have to look at here is, if we're going to break this down, is
Yeah.
Florida and Detroit. Alex, I just have to ask you, how is this going to affect the Atlantic right now?
It's huge, huge.
Huge. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah. I was
huge,
surprised. Two
huge
division
repercussions.
rivals trading with each other midway through the season.
Huge consequences for the Atlantic Division moving forward after this trade, obviously, if you couldn't
Mm-hmm.
tell. But let's start with some good news. Great news. In fact, we have another update for Alex Ovechkin. I feel like we do this like once every other week because we have to. We
Yes.
literally have to. Alex Ovechkin has now become the third player in NHL history to score 800 goals. The other two, Gordie Howe at 801, and obviously Wayne Gretzky, the guy we've been talking about him chasing for years now, who has 894 goals.
It's like, okay, like it's weird because when you get into that now, like when we say the 800 for Ovi, congrats, by the way, and then you say 894 for Wayne, it's weird that I know that's not that long ago, but like in our lifetime, a guy in the modern NHL has gotten this close. Like
Yeah,
it's weird to me. It's actually happening.
especially with how him playing for a consistent period of time in the dead puck era,
Yeah.
right? And the fact he was still able to consistently score 50 goals consistently, like not even a problem. And so now to say he is 94 goals away from Wayne Gretzky's record is again wild. I think I was last time we had this discussion about him passing someone. When you put it into that perspective, you realize how close he is to breaking that record and how more likely it is now that he's going to break that record.
Yeah. And can I say the way he did it is the most Ovechkin way he could have done it. He scored a hat trick.
Yeah.
Like
He,
not only he showed the 800 puck, but he showed all three in his picture, and I love that. It's still like crazy to me that the way he plays, like he's still as aggressive as he was when he was 21, 22, and he's literally carrying the the Capitals offense right now, the way they are.
yeah. And do you know who he scored his 800th goal against?
Oh, who was it?
You don't know?
I don't know. Who was it?
Petr Mrazek.
Oh, there it
Oh,
is. Oh
he,
yeah, Chicago. Sorry, I
of
forgot.
Chicago.
Yeah.
He is one of 165 goalies that Ovia scored against in his career.
I'd like to mention there's something really funny when I found that link for us is someone put a pic zoomed into the picture of Kevin Weeks,
Yeah.
and then they put, "Hey, what's going on, NHL fans? Kevin Weeks here from one of the 165 goalies that Ovi scored on."
Oh
That's
man.
probably one of my favorites they could have used for this, but yeah, it's weird. Like it's still sinking in with me that a guy is this close in 2022 to
No,
Wayne Gretzky's record. That
it's wild.
okay, this is like I don't want to put a damper on it, but
Oh, please
just
don't. Please.
okay. But there's just been a few people who have been commenting when it's like Ovi is chasing history, which is great, right? Great for the
Mhm.
sport, great for anybody who loves hockey, and like I don't know, like why would we have to go respond like okay now look at Wayne's assist and compare it to Ovi or okay let's think about the playoff points. I'm like okay, like what why?
Because people don't understand. Again, it's like people to me, and obviously I've been having this debate over the last month, in more so about soccer, like Messi and Ronaldo. But it's like we're we're talking about his goal scoring record. When Wayne Gretzky or when Alex Ovechkin retires, he's going to be the greatest goal scorer of all time.
Mm-hmm.
The greatest goal scorer of all time. No one's saying he's better than Wayne Gretzky. We're talking about one record that Wayne Gretzky has. Do you know how many other records that Wayne Gretzky has? Like
Many, yes,
many,
many.
many, many. Like I was a couple episodes ago, we were talking about Sidney Crosby, and then we ended up going through the points record. Who's going to ever touch Wayne Gretzky's point record? Who? I don't even think McDavid. Yeah. Listen, I don't think McDavid will touch Gretzky's goal scoring record. We're talking about goals. Just
Well,
leave
we
it
don't know that. You
alone.
know, if Leon Draisaitl leaves and then it's just Connor McDavid and friends, no, I'm
No,
kidding.
but
We don't know.
it's we're talking about Alex Ovechkin breaking Wayne Gretzky's goal scoring record and nothing else.
Like a
It's
personal thing sometimes, I feel.
no,
I mean, okay, I think it's my mistake because I've gone against my own advice that if you ever love anything in this world, don't go through the comment section.
yes,
Um,
100%.
but yeah, second thing is just I don't know, it's just people feel personally attacked sometimes when it's like we're not taking Wayne Gretzky away from you.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
And it's like the man, I'll never forget that when Patrick Marleau broke the games played record, and we had to have a discussion about whether that was a good thing or not because someone decided that it was a discussion that needed to be had.
Mm-hmm.
No one's gonna forget Gordie Howe because Patrick Marleau broke his record. No
Yeah.
one. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, but it's a great transition opportunity. Daniel, you threw it my way. We're just talking. I want to get to naming trophies after players.
Mm-hmm. We already have the Norris change already.
We
discussed
have
that one.
yeah yeah yes we have we last week the NBA changed 6 awards and named them after players. We'll go through it quickly. Michael Jordan Trophy, MVP. Jerry West is for the most clutch player. I really want to see how that they're going to define that, but that's interesting. The Hakeem Olajuwon Trophy, shout out Toronto Raptor. Defensive Player of the Year. Wilt Chamberlain for Rookie of the Year. John Havlicek for Sixth Man of the Year, and George, I lost the name, George Mikan for Most Improved Player. Now, question for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's already some NHL awards that are named after players, or and in the case of even GM and coach, those are both named after former GMs and coaches. Is it time to take a look at some of the names?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I think so. I think because I think the NHL has two choices. Like you have the Art Ross, and then you also have the Hart, right?
The Hart and Ted Lindsay. The
Ted
Art
Lindsay,
Ross
my
is most
apologies. Yeah,
Art
yeah,
Ross is most points.
most points. Sorry, yeah, like Ted Lindsay and the Hart. You have both of those, right? Like you could change one of them.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the Ted Lindsay, there's a really good connection there, right? Because of the work Ted Lindsay did with the NHLPA, and it's players voting on on the award, right? So there's the connection there. But there's two awards in particular I want to point out, and they're not going to be changed now, but I think they have a very good opportunity to be changed within, let's call it, the next 5 years.
Mhm.
The first one is the Selke.
Yeah, that's gonna be
When Patrice Bergeron retires, if that award is not named after him, that's a travesty
yeah, I agree.
to me.
I was about to say that too. Like, yeah, like when you think Selke, you think Bergeron and like the
Mhm.
consistency he's had with that. So definitely, I agree with that one.
The second one is, and the second one is, and I feel like this might upset a certain fan base, but I'm gonna do it anyways. I think when Alex Ovechkin retires with the most goals scored in the NHL, that Rocket Richard should be changed to the Alex Ovechkin
Oh
trophy.
wow.
It's
Sorry,
but
I get it.
I think the reasoning is extremely fair,
Yeah.
right? It's for the guy who scores the most goals, and he scored them, or when he retires, he will have scored the most goals in the NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and are there any awards that you look at and say, okay, I think maybe it's time to revamp the name?
No, I'm just like I understand like where you're coming from with the
Mhm.
Richard one.
Okay.
I'm just thinking, I don't know why, because I know Adam's not here to say something, but
Okay.
I'm just thinking about what Adam would think, or just for the sake of tradition, what would happen. But I completely understand when Ovechkin, when it's all said and done, he will, fingers crossed, knock on wood, he will win. Like he will be the leading scorer in NHL history. So I could see that happening. I think it's like we've reached a point already with Ovi where it's like he's an institution already, where you could say that he is going to be the best goal scorer ever, and I could see the award changing.
Not only is he gonna is he the he'll be the have the most goals in an NHL career. He would have won, and at this point, at
Yeah,
this moment in time, he has won that trophy 9 times. 9,
that's insane.
right? Like it's
Yeah.
an incredible number. And I think the conversation I want to have here is, are the a lot of people say when we're doing stuff like this that we're, quote, removing history,
Mm-hmm.
but I disagree with that. I think I'll put it in quotations, modernizing history. I'm not removing the fact that these players exist, because in 100 years, when none of us are around and there's a whole new crop of players to look at, do you think in 100 years the James Norris is still going to be the Norris Trophy? Do you think that, like, I don't think so. I think these awards can be changed. The Hockey Hall of Fame exists for a reason. The internet exists for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, just because the trophy's not named after them does not mean they do not exist.
Yeah, because it even goes back to the goal scoring aspect we saw in it, that we all know Gordie Howe. We know who he is. But when Ovechkin's going to pass him, it's not going to be like, oh, we don't remember who that guy is. Or when Wayne Gretzky passed Gordie Howe, it's not like a bunch of people are saying, like, okay, now we forgot Gordie Howe.
Right.
It doesn't, no, it's not like that.
No, it's not. We're like, it's just, I keep coming back to the word modernizing it, and I'm fine with using that word. We're just modernizing what is going on. No one's stopping people from having the opportunity, like, from going and learning about these things. I'd be really curious to know how many people know the individual things that those people with the name. Okay, I'm going to restart my sentence.
Okay.
I'd be very curious to know how many people actually know what the people that are named after the award did. How many people know the significance of
The Lady
Ted
Bing.
Lindsay?
Oh,
Who?
yeah.
Who was
Oh, the Lady Bing.
Sure. How is that name? Where did that name come from?
Oh, I know why. I learned this in
Okay,
a lecture.
sure.
So,
What lecture did you learn this in? I need to know. I
I think it
want
was
to know.
like I don't know. It was like I don't know. It's like one of my labs, I think.
Okay,
So apparently, Lady Byng was the wife of Lord Byng, who used to be the Governor General of Canada in the 30s.
okay,
And apparently, like she used to always just give away awards for like those gentlemanly Canadian, I guess, or someone
sure.
in politics. I might be. I know it comes from Lady Byng and Lord Byng, but I
Hmm.
don't. I just remember like yeah, they would give out awards like that, and they just called it the Lady Byng. So it's very, I guess, English Canada focused. I mean the
Yep,
history's there and the roots.
sure. But I'd be very curious to know how many people actually know. I know you know that. I know you know that. Like, I'd be curious to know how many people actually understand the significance of why these people have awards named after them. Like, that's the thing to me. I don't think we're removing history. I don't think that's how this works. I don't think if you get rid of an award that we're just suddenly going to forget who these people are. We have
Mhm.
the tools and resources to make sure that doesn't happen.
When I was a kid, I remember I didn't know Conn Smythe was a person.
Yeah.
I actually just thought like, oh, okay, that's just the playoff MVP award. I'll just take it as it is. Like I never questioned it. I don't know why.
Yeah, and like I'll give a personal example. I didn't not know the significance of Ted Lindsay until a few years before we started the podcast.
Mhm.
Like, what was his significance, right? Like, why is he important? I did not know that until a few years before we started the podcast, right? Like, but I didn't learn that because the award was named the Ted Lindsay. Like, that's what I mean. Like, unless I don't know if the names of the awards are making people go search these names, is would be my argument. Do you have anything else to add? I feel like I
So
went on
who
a
would be your
tangent there.
Norris pick if you were to
Oh,
replace that name?
okay. I'd argue. I would argue Bobby Orr because I think he completely
Mm-hmm.
revolutionized the way uh of playing defense. Like, I think that's
Yeah.
what I know Adam's gonna probably say like Nick Lidstrom or something like that. But who would you pick?
Actually, like, I was leaning. I know people would say Lidstrom. I
Mhm.
was thinking of Bobby Orr, and then again, I mean, like these are at least the positive comments I saw in a lot of social media posts. But people are also saying Ray Bork, which is another example. But
Sure.
I guess yeah, like Bobby Orr himself as well. Like when I use the word institution, it's like that's what he is as well. That I was never alive to see him play, but
Right.
I know Bobby Orr. I know how good he was.
And he doesn't even have an award named after him.
Yeah.
Wild. I really wish Adam was here because I would have just thrown a grenade and said, okay, so who should get the Vesna? But he's not. So, maybe we'll
Oh,
save
it's gonna
that.
be Martin Brodeur, of course. So I could just say that now. It's Martin Brodeur should be named after the Vesna.
Okay, you heard it here first. I'm sure Adam will have a rebuttal next time he is on.
Mhm.
But let's let's
But
move on.
for now, until the next episode,
Yeah,
the
the
Vesna is
the
officially the Martin
the
Brodeur
Brodeur
Trophy.
that might just have to be the name of the episode, frankly.
Okay.
Let's move on to the Vancouver Canucks. I feel we haven't talked about them enough.
But they
That
keep
was a
giving
joke.
us. They
That
keep.
was a joke. I just want to be clear. I am joking.
We
They
love it. They keep
I
giving us headlines.
I know they do. Um, so we got a couple things that's come out since last episode about the Vancouver Canucks, and it's always juicy. Let's start with Bo Horvat, who is probably most definitely likely to be on the move. I have this quote from Elliot Friedman from 32 Thoughts, the article, to be
So
clear.
many variations.
So many. It sounds like they've offered Horvat both 7 and 8 year deals, but multiple sources indicate that the chasm is wide and bringing it will, quote, be difficult. They've definitely put him on the market with teams indicating the Canucks are asking what you'd want for a premium rental. Tight cap situations mean there's time to sort it out and Vancouver could try to sign him again. The challenge as I see it is they're not keen on going over Miller's 56 million contract. And Horvat's monster season puts him in position to go above that.
Well, they really shot themselves in the foot with that one.
They did. One more thing. I guess we're talking about trades, and we were just talking about Brock Besser a couple weeks ago, and now we're talking about Bo Horvat. But Pierre LeBrun also added that it seems that Vancouver is looking for more of a hockey deal to upgrade at center and or right shot defense if possible, and bring in a player in the 20-something age range. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
Like
refusing to rebuild. Well, I mean, I know we're going to get to the next part of it, but it's just, I don't see, it's like a middling thing where when you think about like that leadership you had with Horvat and just the type of game he plays, I think it complements any team so well. And the fact that he did want to stay in Vancouver, at least initially, and then you pay all these other guys before your captain. It's just, if I'm Bo Horvat, I'm just looking around thinking, okay, like, are they just going to expect like a hometown discount at this point? Or is it like you just forget? Like, I don't know.
Also, if I'm him, I'm looking, and it seems pre this that he wanted to stay in Vancouver.
Yeah.
But I wonder if in his head, like, he has to look what's going on and what's gone on the last 18 months and say, what are we doing moving forward? Because they haven't picked a direction.
Mm-hmm.
They haven't decided what way they're going to go. They say they have, right? And you brought it up. Like they're saying they're not looking to rebuild. They're looking to shake things up. But that's not a clear direction. This is what we're going to do in the short term.
It's what I kind of felt they've been doing the last few years. I've complimented them a lot before when they had that really good playoff run where I think a lot of us thought that, okay, great, that was amazing. Let's build off of that. And ever since that, it's been kind of quiet. It's been, we're spending a lot of money, but we're not getting the results.
Yeah, that's pretty much what's going on. I want to just quickly wrap up the Bo Horvat stuff, and then I want to get back to the not rebuild. I'd be curious to know, and we did this exercise with Brock Besser. Now I think it's fair to do it with Bo Horvat. Now that it seems more and more likely that he's going to be traded, if you had to pick, I'll pick two teams who you think he could go to. What two teams do you think that would be?
Pure
speculation. Pure speculation. Like no insider information we have here.
Okay. I'm gonna say, because they always do this and they don't care about prospects or picks, I'm gonna say Vegas.
Okay.
Because they're not afraid to throw one of their other larger contracts onto the bus. So they could try to fit them. And I'll say, like, this is without speculation, but it's just maybe I heard about it too much. But would it be weird to say Tampa Bay?
Man. No, the thing is, with Tampa Bay, if I'm just looking at it just without looking at picks, prospects, etc., based on their previous history, I wouldn't be awfully surprised. It's just they don't have anything they don't have a lot to offer, right? Because their next two first-round picks are out the door to Chicago. I don't know their prospect pool great, but I just can't see there being enough. And the issue here with what they're asking for, that would mean someone from their roster would have to come out.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what the return they're looking for is. And they just the guys that come first to mind are all guys they literally just locked up. Yeah. Right? They literally just locked up. I'm not suggesting that this is something that would be a deal. I'm just spitballing here. Anthony Cirelli literally just signed him to an extension. Nick Paul just signed him to an extension. Brandon Hagel has 2 years left at 1.5. They're not. I can't imagine they're giving that up.
I mean, there's
Sergey,
there's
pardon.
there's Cal Foot. I don't know, like, because he is
There's
kind of
Calfoot. Yeah, fair.
right hand shot
Right hand
shooting
shot
guy. Yeah,
24. I'm just thinking if you're trading Bo Horvat, like you're gonna
yeah,
want some type of substance in return. Not saying that Calfoot isn't something of substance. I just don't know if that it seems like they're trying to find a solution to the problem they have, and I don't think Calfoot is necessarily going to be that. But in any other circumstance, would I
yeah.
say Tampa Bay are in on that, or would be in on Bo Horvat? There's one team in particular. There's two, I guess. Number one being the Islanders. This might be great. Like again, if this were
Oh
ever to
yeah,
come out, the deal would be axed because
that's you. It's
Lou.
it's axed. We're already talking about it.
We're
It's
already
axed.
talking about
Yeah.
it. That's fine, but again, you'd think they could use a scoring guy like Bo Horvat, who was on pace for like 50 something goals last week, and then another team to add into that mix would be Colorado,
Yeah, I was thinking
who's
Colorado too.
depleted at the moment,
And
surviving but depleted.
they have, yeah, I think you've convinced me with Colorado that they do have that asset. They have those assets to really do something about it.
Yep.
And I think they're showcasing a few of their younger guys too. And those wingers that you've mentioned, Vancouver's looking at, maybe you could find something there.
And I think it fits for Colorado. I think it's the perfect fit because it's exactly what they need. You all, when that lineup is healthy, you already have down the middle. You have Nathan McKinnon there, who's God, one of the best players in the NHL. And then after that, it feels like your center depth slows down a bit. Like you have Evan Rodriguez, who, okay, listen, like bottom six guy, with all due respect. You look at a guy like Alex Newhook, who's very, very young. But I think if you look at what they had last year, having McKinnon and Kadri, bringing in a guy like Horvat to have McKinnon and Horvat would be just as deadly. Especially like you look at the comparisons. Kadri was on a career year last year, and I'm pretty sure Bo Horvat's on a career year this year as well. Like it's wild. It's wild. I think to me, Colorado seems like the perfect fit in my head, and I'd be very curious to know what if they're interested.
A kid work. I mean, I know he's a left-hand shot, but they have a lot of defensemen, and they can't play all of them top 4 minutes. So maybe
That's
it starts
true.
with Sam Girard and something else.
Oh, Daniel. Oh my goodness. That would be that would be, and he can play on the right.
Yeah.
That'd be
So
interesting. Oh man. Let's go back to Vancouver. So something that came out from 32 Thoughts Hockey Night in Canada is that Vancouver, we said before, is not looking to rebuild. And they have one untouchable player. One. Do you know who that is, Daniel?
it was Elias Pettersson, which, okay, so when I told you they keep giving us headlines, it's just crazy. Like, I can't think of the players right now in the locker room saying everybody's on the market except this one guy.
Except you.
Yes.
That's wild. Like, not that it's wild, it's just, which means there's one player that we didn't mention, Quinn Hughes, who they said it would take an absolutely mammoth offer to take off Vancouver's hands. Is this like, so the whole consensus in Vancouver is they're not going to tear it down?
So,
like, is it does, I'm just confused at what they're trying to do here.
yeah, because like given his age, his skill, what he's done already before, wouldn't Quinn Hughes also be on the untouchable list? Like in my opinion, for how young he is, the position he plays, the way he plays, what he's been able to do, wouldn't this be like the prime example of a player that you want to build your foundation around?
I would say so. Like the thing is
what else is out there?
Not a whole lot. Like I'm looking at the thing that's the most confusing is that Pettersson is untouchable, but Quinn Hughes isn't. Like, to
Yeah.
me, when I look at the Vancouver Canucks, and we'll touch on Thatcher Demko. I'm very interested in that, like how his name was just completely left out of all this discussion. But to me, when I look at the Vancouver Canucks and what they've done, what those two guys in particular have done over the last few years, yeah, there's been some rough patches for both of them, for absolutely for both of them. To me, they're on the same level. They're
Yeah.
on the same level of caliber of player, and especially for that team who, other than those two, doesn't always look like it looks a little bleak.
Yeah, it looks a little thin when you look beyond those two guys that, or at least those three guys. I still put Demko there.
Yep.
Of those three guys that I consider your foundation, the guys that you're supposed to be building around, and it's weird to me that you would have again on the spending, like you have Ilya Mikheyev, you have JT Miller on those types of deals. If I could put Tyler Myers on those types of deals too, and it's like you just forgot about what you had to do for the guys who are your core. That it's like when I talk about them spending the money, it's something that like they just missed the point. They just missed it. Like they gave the supporting cast all this money. And I'm not saying JT Miller's supporting cast player. He's a great player, but I guess given his age, the position he plays, like it's not a prime thing. I think about when you think about Elias Pettersson, or you look at that defense and it's really just Quinn Hughes who is like the star potential guy.
And I think when you say they missed the point, I think that feels so spot on. When you look back at what when they were talking about the summer, and their whole thing was, well, we're going to try to sign both Bo Horvat and JT Miller, with our priority being Bo Horvat. And then that changed because JT Miller obviously signed that contract. I wonder if them getting JT Miller to sign was I wonder if them getting JT Miller to sign was the swing in direction. Like I can't see. Whereas, okay, you weren't getting exactly what you want for JT Miller last season, but you guys were not. It was not a fun. Yeah, it was fun at the end of the season, but never, like, let's not forget how their season started under Travis Green, and we look at them, some of the things that Jim Benning did. It's just I feel, and this is full 2020 hindsight, and I fully understand that. I just feel, looking at the situation, you probably could have traded JT Miller, re-signed your captain, and now you have assets from trading JT Miller. Like, yeah, it's not the perfect scenario, but now you're left with JT Miller and co. You have Bo Horvat, who's, yes, is having a career year, but I'd be like, are they going to get as much for Bo Horvat as they could have gone for JT Miller last year? And to me, the answer is no. To me, the answer is no, because you could have JT Miller for 2 playoff runs, or you can have Bo Horvat for like 25 games in a playoff run. Mm-hmm. What's worth more? To me, that's JT Miller, not because of the player, but because of the 2 playoff runs. And that's where I think the direction, you're right, and the direction is all off. And like, okay, where are we going? Now you're stuck with JT Miller, great player, point per game player, but now you're stuck with JT Miller for 7 more years, and that like there's respected people in Vancouver who are saying that locker room is not the easiest to be in.
Yeah,
and now you're letting your captain, and Luke Shen is probably going to go too.
I like that you mentioned him.
I had to.
My boy.
I had to.
Almost at 1,000 games, almost there. Um, yeah, I guess it's just weird now. It's just like an ominous time if eventually JT Miller becomes the captain of the team. And what I mentioned, like you missed the point here. It's also, and it's not the same caliber of players I'm comparing, but it's like a situation that we saw with St. Louis where it's like, okay, listen, Alex Petrangelo's waiting for a new contract. What are you going to do about that? We're going to get Justin Falk
And extend him.
and extend him.
And extend him. You know what I mean? Like, don't think that didn't sour the grapes a little bit. We all know that the day it happened, did we not literally
Yes.
was like, why? What who? What are we doing? No, it was wild. Like it's just it feels like that's a you know what that's such a good comparison. It feels very similar to that, except the St. Louis Blues might be in a little bit of a better position than the Vancouver
Yeah,
Canucks.
they got Torrey Krug where he's having, according to my fantasy team, he's having a very rough year, but he's still a solid player. He's
Yeah,
performed well, with the exception of this year.
that is yeah. I before we move on, I want to do a little bit more about what was said. Why and maybe I've completely missed it.
Mm-hmm.
Why are we not talking about Thatcher Demko not being a part of he not even mentioned in the conversation? Like you brought it up before, you think those three are the Canucks core. If you look back to their playoff run, he was instrumental in that playoff. He was very instrumental in that playoff run. And he's not having a good year. I don't want to trash on Thatcher Demko, but my question is, why is he not in this conversation? If he's so important, if he's been so important to the team in years past, and I don't want to say he's lost his starting job to Spencer Martin, but why is he not being included in these conversations? Like, am I missing something, or is he just not as important as to the team as we thought he was?
I don't know. It's just I think there's been so much hype with him. I remember it was a lot about, just waiting for him. He's playing in Boston College. Let's get things gradual with him. But with those playoffs, he really did prove how good he was. And I mean, I don't want to say outlived because they're still alive and they're playing, but he was able to get the job away, and with Jacob Markstrom leaving, and then with Braden Holtby trying to come in, and then things not working out there, and they still kept Thatcher Demko, and for what he's been given in front of him, he still was pretty solid now. So
Right.
I think it's just maybe with the injury, they're just looking at what they really have, because Spencer Martin's been a great surprise for them, but he's not at least at that level. Like he's not at all at that level that we're seeing with Thatcher Demko, or for the amount of hype, the amount of patience, the development they've put into this guy. I don't think they're giving the appreciation that he deserves.
No, for sure. From one goalie that a team has developed to another, Stuart Skinner today signed a 3-year extension with a cap hit of 2.6 million.
Yeah, it's not a good contract. He's getting more than Ilya Samsonov this year. So,
Daniel, please don't make it about the Leafs. We're going to get in trouble. But just before we get into it, I don't want to. I would like to spend some time on this. But in 19 games, he's 9-8-1 with a 915 save percentage. Similar numbers to what he had put up last year. He only played 13 games last year over an entire season, and he's already played 19 in this year alone. There's been times, and I think some people would definitely argue this, he's stolen the starting job from newly signed goalie Jack Campbell.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair argument to make with looking at the starts, and my fantasy team hurts from that. But that's fine. I definitely don't regret drafting Jack Campbell. But I think my biggest question with the Stuart Skinner signing is, and this is going to come off harsh, but it's just a question. With this signing, the Oilers have now decided that Jack Campbell and Stuart Skinner will be their duo for the foreseeable future, right? 3.5 more years of Stuart Skinner, 4.5 more years of Jack Campbell. Is this the right move, or is this the wrong move?
I guess first off, a lot younger than their last tandem. So
Correct.
there's a good start there.
That's a low bar. That's a low bar,
Yes.
but correct.
I guess second, you can see what you do with it. I don't know. It's from the same argument I've had before. I know Jack Campbell, I think, yeah, he is 30, 31.
Yep.
But it's just weird because it's not like it's a traditional 30, 31. Even when goalies take longer to develop because he's had those injuries. It's taken a while for him to have like last year it was arguably he was first time he was a starter
Yeah.
in his career. So it's just hard for me to say like, oh, this is how he plays. He needs to warm up a bit, and maybe if he just has a bit of spot starts, we'll see where it can go. But the fact that we don't have that information on Jack Campbell, but he still has that huge deal, just gives me a bit more of question marks everywhere. Because again, I can't also say Stuart Skinner is going to perform like this if you give him 40, 50 games, because I just don't know.
Yeah, he's played a career, I think, just under 50 games in the NHL. And like again, like this isn't I don't want to rag on the contract because I don't think that's an issue. I think you look at like some of the other contracts that were goalie contracts that were handed out over the last 18 months. Some of them were a lot of money, and some of them just aren't working out as thought. I mean, the most obvious example is Kyle Peterson, and obviously we all hope he's gonna get back that confidence in the AHL and come back, and the Kings can be better. Like I look at Skinner and I say I pose the question, but I think in a weird way, it's the right move because they didn't have an option. I don't think what were you going to do? Not sign Stuart Skinner? He's been your better goalie. They put themselves in the position of now we have Jack Campbell because we signed him to a 5x5. But it was the right move to sign Stuart Skinner because he was your better goal. Like you saw, he was able to help you last year in stretches, and he's been your better goalie this year by far. I don't even think that's a question. So I pose the question, but I'd say it's the right move, and it would seem to be the only option.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think he's deserved it. I think you kind of had to do what you needed to do because he is your guy right now.
Yeah,
but
he is.
It's another situation now where you have two goalies where they're both making money, and who gets to start over who, or whom? Is it whom?
Whom?
And what I kind of feel now is like, yeah, I guess, like I said, I get younger, but moving forward, it's not like that defense has taken strides to be a lot better than it was before, or there's been massive upgrades there. It's the same defense. And yeah, they made it to the conference finals, but once you go against a team like the Avalanche again, it's going to be this. I feel like it's going to be the same results. Again, we don't know. Small sample size. Stuart Skinner could become a legitimate number one, and we can be wrong right now. But as of right now, what I see is we'll have to see. Like, it's what 2.66 million, right?
Yeah.
It's not
like a lot of
Cal
money.
Peterson 5 million. Like
no, it's not, and that's why it's like it's a decent bet to make on a guy who, yes, has played under 50 games, but has seemed to do okay. It's not like you're giving him Cal Peterson or et cetera type contract. So I think in the end, it'll be a fine bet, and he's been the better goalie. You didn't have the option not to sign him in my eyes. But let's move on. Sorry, go ahead.
Just one silver lining here.
Yep.
The Oilers developed a goalie. You know what I mean?
They did. They did. It took some time.
I can't think of another. Like, who was their last goalie to develop? I can't remember.
I couldn't tell
know.
you. You would know better than me.
I just don't know.
You don't know that. That's how you know it's bad. It's like the conversation we had maybe a year ago. We're like, okay, who's the best right-handed defenseman the Leafs have developed? And we couldn't really come up with an answer.
It's Luke Shen.
Okay, but
yeah,
we didn't come up with a good answer. I
Matt
think
Hollowell's a close second.
the, yeah, I don't remember. I'm just looking something up, but I thought we had like almost decided on Thomas Caberlet, but I just realized he's left-handed, so that definitely not him. But let's move on to some I'm gonna call it boring stuff because it's Board of Governors shenanigans, as they do a couple times a year.
Yeah.
I'd want to start with I'm not congratulating. I'm just pointing out this one thing. It's been 30 years since Gary Bettman has become the dictator or commissioner, depending on how you want to look at it, of the NHL. How do you feel? I don't want to ask. I just want to point it out because it's like I know we're gonna have the same answer. Blah 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 blah. It was it's Gary Bettman, man. Like, I was thinking, how can we have this? How can we make a spin on this conversation to make it sound good? I was gonna ask you what the best thing he's ever done is. Do you want to have that? We can have the conversation.
You want, like, I'll just use Brian Burke's quotes where,
okay,
a lot of people don't understand how much work and growth that Gary's done for the league and expanding to all these other places, and standing by. Okay, so this is one thing I will applaud Gary Bettman for: standing by the Arizona Coyotes through it all, despite what has been going on, and even trying to get an arena there and committing to, like, was it like a 20-30 year promise that the team will not relocate?
Yeah,
that's commitment.
That's commitment for sure. It's been good. I listen, I'm gonna argue the best thing he's ever done is put a team in Vegas. And that was like 3 years or how many 5-6 years ago now.
Oh my gosh, it was 5 years ago. Yeah,
but it was the most obvious thing to do, so I don't know how much credit I can give him. But let's get to the nitty gritty. What happened at this thing? There's like 3 or 4 things I want to go over that happened this or last weekend. First one being the salary cap. We love to talk about the salary cap. Mainly me. I'm the only one who likes to talk about the salary cap, frankly. But still, now Gary Bettman is saying that the salary cap's only going to go up $1 million this offseason. And this all comes after Bettman himself hinted at a larger salary cap increase earlier this season. I believe it was either his press conference after the international games or his press conference in Winnipeg. I don't remember exactly which one. And essentially the reason it's not going to go up is because because the league revenues are still short of what is needed to raise the ceiling by 4 million instead of 1 million.
He lied to us. No, he didn't lie.
He almost did.
Yeah, almost did. I mean, it's marginal, but I don't know. If you're Cal Dubas, just really thinking like it's a bit of breath of, like, it's a sigh of relief, right?
Is it? No, I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. I think
that's that's more than a Mark Giordano right now.
Listen, here's the thing from my perspective is I understand the agreement, and everyone's like, Gary's whole thing is, well, in the agreement, like this and this, and it's like, I get it, but how can anybody look like, if you're Gary Bettman, or actually I don't think Gary Bettman has feelings, so I don't think it matters. How can you be an NHL general manager, a player, an owner, look at the NBA, look at the NFL, look at the MLS, and say, we're okay when they're all increasing their caps by more than whatever?
Yeah. Or there's no cap.
Or there's no cap in the MLB. You're right. Yeah. Like, it's, to me, it's gotta be a little embarrassing because it's got to be a little embarrassing because they're your whether you think of it like that or not. The NBA, the NBA, NFL, those guys, those are your competitors. You're on at the same time as them. You're on during your seasons are quite similar. Maybe not so much the NFL's, but the NBA's in particular is very similar to the NHL's, and they're doing so much better. Like, how many teams are cap strapped? All of them. All of them. Like the other issue,
even the bad ones are
even the bad ones.
Oh, yeah.
And the issue I have with, if you go look at Bettman's quotes, and people have been saying this, it just screams negotiation. And it's, you know what? Like, what in essence, it's what are the players going to give to me? And I understand that from a business perspective, I guess a negotiation tactics. But again, you look at how cap strapped the majority of your league is, someone has to be embarrassed. And I'm going to beg on this podcast right now. I am begging one of the executive owners, that there's that group of 12 owners who are the hot shots in the NHL. I'm begging one of you to go to Gary and say, let's figure this out. Like, just grow a pair and figure this out, because this isn't good. And that's all that needs to happen, by the way. If like Jeff Molson or what's his name in Boston? Why do I always forget this? Jeremy Jacobs, and the Wars family in Chicago, if someone could just grow a pair and say, Gary, let's deal with this. Like, this is enough. Like, this $1 million increase is enough. I think we can figure out the rest of the escrow debt that needs to be paid. Because at this point, it's excruciating to watch. Like, teams doing these. No one can make an actual trade. Who's doing anything? This is, and I'm not saying teams want to get better, but they can't.
Yeah.
And the worst part about all of this to me is the NHLPA still has no director. They're still searching for a director.
No leader.
A new one. This is
like, this is an argument we've heard before. You know, as much as we don't always agree with what he has to say, but Carlo Koliakovo has brought it up before, and it is true. It goes down to how are you going to compete with the other leagues? It goes down to how are you actually marketing your athletes, because that's where it is. Like, I guess this has become the word of the show for me, but institution. LeBron James is an institution. Who else? I could even look at Aaron Judge is an institution on his own. And, you know, we laugh about the fact that we see them everywhere, but that's the point. Like, in those really random commercials and everything, and those product placements, that's the thing. We see them everywhere and we know who they are. I don't think we could go to everywhere that's not in Canada and say, hey, buy this BioSteel. You'd like Connor McDavid.
Yeah.
Like, be like Connor McDavid.
How many people do you think know Shaq outside? Like, who aren't basketball fans? How many people do you think know Shaq?
And not just for the printers.
Not just for the printers, for everything. Like,
for everything, yeah.
Everyone has a semblance, like, has an idea of Shaq.
Okay, I have a question for you. This is going to be a random question.
That's fine. I like.
Do people in the U.S. Well, actually, no, I don't know, because it's been a while.
No,
do you think more people know about Wayne Gretzky because of The Office?
Ooh, that's okay. I'm gonna say no. That might be harsh. That's a little harsh.
A reminder, I guess. A reminder of Wayne, not
a reminder. We'll call it a reminder of Wayne. That's. I did not think you were gonna ask me that, but that's definitely, maybe I'd argue, is a little harsh. Okay. But because I do think like Wayne had such a big impact, especially in the southern states, in terms of growing the game. Like, half these teams would not exist, I would argue, without Wayne Gretzky being in LA. So it's a little harsh, but I get your point. I get your point.
I mean, like, a reminder of Wayne, not of an existence of Wayne. Like,
Fair.
I
No,
think
that's
it's just,
it's a good
yeah.
point. It's funny. It's a good point. But you're bringing up, I guess, in ways expanded revenues. And one thing that was discussed, not formally, but was brought up, and it obviously extremely unlikely to happen, is that they were talking about an expanded playoffs. Now, obviously, because Gary doesn't like it, there was no like formal proposal made, but the idea would be something similar to what the NBA has with their play-in tournament. And Pierre LeBrun did a poll with 12 NHL governors, and they were all in favor of expanding the playoffs. And so my question is, would you want an expanded playoff format similar to the NBA? Or if you have a different format, please go ahead in the NHL.
I'm always for it,
Okay.
for expanded playoffs. And I'm gonna, again, if we're using a different league, I'll use the MLB, for example. They have a lot of money, but they were losing a lot of regional interest simply because if you look at the old playoff formats, so you know when the Blue Jays won the World Series in like the early 90s,
Yes.
there was no wild card. You had to win your division to make the
Fair.
playoffs.
Yeah.
And they realized, that's losing a lot of interest because it's 162 games. Like, why would a fan hypothetically be invested in your team if you know you're not going to make the playoffs every single season because you can't compete? So I'm always for it, especially if you want to generate more revenue. There's going to be more games. There's going to be more interest. There's just be like that overall playoff hype you're going to have behind your team if there's a bit more of a chance that your team is going to make the playoffs. So I'm always for it.
Fair. I just the thing the not the, listen, I'm gonna say I'm not for it.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna be if they expand the playoffs, I'm never gonna watch the sport of hockey again. I'm not that angry about it if they do it. I'd understand their business reasons of doing it. But the thing I don't necessarily agree with you on with the baseball comparison is I think with the amount of teams we're already working with, right? We're working with 16
Yeah.
teams already, and then we'd be working with 20 in a league of 32. Whereas with baseball, because I'm not 100% sure, but how many teams were they working with before the wild
Yeah.
card and then after?
So like with the
Right?
wild card, before this expanded wild card they had
Yeah.
this year, there's probably 8 teams make the playoffs
Of how many teams? Like
of
32 or
of
30,
30.
right? Like, so I think you're working with a smaller number. And my second, I guess, issue with the expanded playoffs is I feel like, again, I guess if we're justifying it as a play-in tournament instead of a
Like a
playoff,
series. Yeah.
I guess
Okay.
expanding the
Yeah.
series, like that's one thing. I don't know. Like, I feel like it dilutes the regular season a little bit, just a little bit. Because, like, yes, I fully understand teams 7 to 10 in let's say the conference would be like the races are interesting, and they don't make the playoffs. Okay, but then they didn't make the playoffs in an 82 game regular season. I don't think that makes the regulars, like, the argument I've heard is like it feels like the games are wrapped up. The games in March and in early April don't mean a whole lot of anything. It's like, okay, fair, but like maybe those teams can be a little more competitive. Like, I don't think the issue to our problem or the solution to our problem, sorry, is to expand the playoffs. It's to find ways to make the quality of the game better. And I don't think by expanding the playoffs, that's going to make teams be more inclined to be buyers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's still gonna I just don't see, to me, I don't see how that would work. Third, so my last point is like, okay, how many games are these guys going to be playing?
That's what I was thinking too. Like the physical toll on it, because hockey is different from baseball. It's different from basketball.
Like, you're looking at, okay, so let's say we do let's say it's a series, 3-game series as the play-in, we're talking about now an extra week of games at least, right? You do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or whatever you want to do, but that's 3 more games. Are you still playing an 82 game regular season? How late are you going? We're already always going later than we always want to. Everyone's like, we shouldn't have hockey in June, but we always seem to. So like, what what are we trying to figure out here? Like, I get the expanded revenue. I'm fully for that, but I just think this is the easy way of getting the expanded revenue. I think there's other ways you might be able to go around doing that other than expanding the playoffs. I don't think that's the easiest solution because, okay, the NBA is doing it. Sure. Listen, NBA, I love to rip the NHL for copying things the NBA does, but I don't think they need to copy every single thing the NBA does. I don't right. So that's the thing for me.
Okay.
And so we're talking about but it's okay. It's a great transition. We're talking about schedules. Let's go to this next proposal that they were talking about on 32 Thoughts. It doesn't seem like it has a whole lot of steam at this moment, but it's something that's been considered over the last couple of years. An 84 game schedule. So the whole one of the things that's been harped on a lot this year is that the way some of the rivalries have been scheduled, and most notably the one that's been talked about up in Canada has been the Battle of Alberta. Now, they've already played twice this season. We're in December, and the last one will be on December 27th, which is at the time of recording like 7 or 8 days away. So this 84 game schedule would try to essentially enhance rivalries a little bit more. I'll read out what they had. So you'll have 4 games versus the other 7 teams in your division, which will tally up to 28. You'll have 3 versus the other division in your conference, which would be another 24. And then same as now, 2 against teams in the other conference, which add up to 32, which would give you 84. And then Merrick added that there'd be less preseason games and then the potential of a shorter training camp. So what do you think about this schedule?
I'm just thinking, again, not to make it about the Leafs, but when I think about like who's their prime rivalry then? Like
right now?
Like I don't think it's Battle of Ontario. I don't think it's English versus French Canada. Is it Boston and Toronto? Like, what is it? Tampa and Toronto?
From a fan's perspective, I would argue. I still think there's something in it for the Battle of Ontario and that Montreal and Toronto rivalry. Like, I just think they're all, especially from a historical perspective, there will always be something from a Toronto versus Montreal thing. It's just in recent years, their peaks have never really hit, like been at the same time. So I feel like we don't get that same type of energy all the time, but they've had some entertaining games. Within the conference, I don't know within the division, like you can argue Boston and Tampa, but Boston, I feel like has been a little one-sided at times, and Tampa is like, you're just looking back at last year in the playoffs. To me, Tampa is a huge rival because they stole Zach Bogosian again, but that's okay. I'll get over that. Like I'm just, those would be the obvious ones for me from a Toronto perspective.
I think maybe I'm overthinking this because I'm thinking of other teams. I'm like, who are the Kraken's primary rival? Like the Canucks, or like I don't know how that works there. Or I don't know, like the Ducks and the Kings. Yeah, it was great when they were both at their peak, but they're not at their peak right now. Or like I guess like the Coyotes, who's their biggest rival?
The city of Glendale.
Yeah.
Sorry. It was just, I had to do that. It had to be done. I think again, it's more so, I don't necessarily agree with the tactic that the NHL likes to do, but sometimes I feel like the NHL tries to create rivalries artificially. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think And I think, them changing the playoff format to do 1 to 3 and then have the divisions is a prime example of that for me. Sorry. But in a way, like, I understand that like rivalries are better for the game, but at the end of the day, I think the teams need to like want to be upset. Like, it's not just going to be created because you tell them to.
Yeah.
There's a certain something else that comes along with a rivalry. But yeah,
And
I
I,
agree.
and I think like if the scheduling works out with it, then it would be good. And again, maybe because I'm just looking at our own teams, but like for me, when I think rivalry, I think Montreal versus Toronto,
Mhm.
7 o'clock hockey night in Canada.
For sure.
Like if they do it like that, great. Like if you do that with the next, like the additional 2 games, that'd be amazing. So for
And
me,
you get one more,
yeah,
depending on the year, you'd get one more of those,
yeah,
right? Like if you play 3 times a year, you get that fourth time. I think it's essentially so. I don't know why the special number is 4, but they seem to think the special number is 4. But I think when you look at the Battle of Alberta, the whole issue with that is not that they're yes, it's crazy that whoever made the schedule saw what happened last year and said they're playing 3 instead of 4 times. But I also think it's how it's scheduled. Like, yeah, it's wild that in the first 3 months of the season, they're playing 3 times and that's it. Could you have not scheduled this better? I think maybe
yeah.
that's the question that needs to be asked, not, hey, let's add 2 more games for the sake of adding 2 more games. I do agree um, with that. Um, Getting to a little more of a tougher topic, but I think we have to talk about it. So at the Board of Governors press conference, Bettman was asked about the ongoing league investigation into the 2018 Canadian World Junior team. He had said it was almost done. One of the sticking points of making it public, LeBron said, is that the NHL doesn't want to interfere in any way with the police investigation still going on in London. Which is to say, I think that he said, which is to say, I think the league is sensitive to the fact that announcing the findings of its investigation before London police are done with their criminal investigation could be an issue. So speaking of this London police investigation, yesterday, Robin Doolittle of the Globe and Mail had a pretty big story come out about the 2018 World Junior team and the investigation that's going on. And I'm just gonna go through. She has a thread, and I think I urge people to go read the article. She's a few other people. Rick Westhead has obviously been tweeting about it too, but I just want to get some of the important information out. So she tweeted, there are some big revelations in the story. Number one, the London police believe they have reasonable grounds to charge 5 members of the 2018 World Junior team with sexual assault. London police investigated the case in 2018 and it closed without charges in February 2019. They reopened it this summer, being 2022. One big update is they discovered a group text chat among players. The filing says player 1. Again, the players are obviously all unknown, so it's player 1, 2, 3, etc. The filing says player 1, quote, sent a text message asking if anyone in the group conversation would like, and then it's redacted, being specific sex acts. Another teammate replied, yes, in quotes or in brackets. Sorry, player 1 had consensual sex with EM, who is the victim, who is noted as EM throughout the article. Afterwards, it's alleged he texted his teammates to come to the hotel room. The filing describes an, quote, older gentleman who is at the bar with EM and the players. He is alleged to have been buying drinks for the group, poured a shot in EM's mouth, and told her to, quote, take care of player 1. Finally, it suggests that Hockey Canada gave player 1 a heads up that the police had been contacted. After learning this news, player 1 is alleged to have searched for EM on Instagram. He then DM'd her asking to make the investigation go away.
So that's the new development, right? Is
Yep.
the older gentleman with the suit as well as this group chat. Because I think like for me, because I read like yeah, I did just read Robin Doolittle's article, but it did I think this is the first time it did mention that older gentleman with the
Yep.
suit. And it's alleged that he did work or it was his job to at least be there with the players.
Yeah, and sorry, someone was just at the door. And it's just I I feel it just sucks. Like the story is it does not it's never going to get better, but I think it makes everything we watched at those hearings, it
Mm-hmm.
makes me angry because those hearings, especially the last two that they had, the Andrea Skinner and I don't remember the other guys' names, but having them there and the attitude they had towards these hearings, reading this story and them, and obviously we knew they were aware of it, but everything that led up to it is just, it makes it so much worse, and it makes me so much more uh angry at the entire situation and how it's been handled. And God, I hope Hockey Canada and Co figures this out.
Yeah, definitely. As much as like it is tough to keep reading this because there's always these updates on what's going on a lot more of the detail that's happening. It does feel though that we're getting to a point now that we're eventually going to know the 5 or 8 players that were involved. That I think it is alleged now that out of the 8, 5 of them were on the World Junior team.
Yeah, that's what I believe this story or past stories have said as well. And again, like I hope the investigations that can be made public are made public. I
Yeah,
think it's important. Like I think it's extremely important that it's made public. I don't see why this situation, and I don't want to compare and contrast situations. I think it's important. It's important, and I don't see why this is different than when you look at what had happened to Kyle Beach, and that report was made public. That
yeah,
investigation, sorry, was made public. So I'd hope, uh, if possible, if it is legally allowed, that the NHL releases their report, because I think it's of public interest.
yeah, for sure. I think when we get all these other updates with the way things are progressing, we're eventually gonna know.
Yeah.
We're gonna eventually know the names. Like it's eventually gonna come out. I know that we keep having speculation, but I'm just kind of waiting on to when that report does come out eventually. I'm pretty hopeful it does because, like you said, it is public interest. It is a story that has literally been around the nation that everyone I think has been tuning in towards. That this is something that it's this dire. And listen, like I've said it before on the pod, and we are getting to that time of the year again. It is the World Juniors again,
Mm-hmm.
and as much as I have been such a huge fan of it, like it's the same thing as in the summer. I can't feel the need to be excited about it. That we've mentioned before, Shane Wright, yeah, great captain of the team, but for me, it's just not the same anymore because you don't trust Hockey Canada. You don't trust what's going on with them. That yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know it is something you need to do. You have the tournament going, but there's just so many things we don't know, and it's just a weird time for me because I don't know. Like honestly, yeah, the World Juniors have been pretty tarnished for me
Yeah, and I
for
think,
for the right
sorry,
reasons. Like you know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
This
yeah.
like yeah
It's on, and I think, I don't know how many people would disagree with this, but I think Hockey Canada's reputation on and off the ice has taken a huge hit over the last few years.
yeah
Like you saw, and again, I'm referencing things that's happened in the past, but how many advertisers all at or sponsors, sorry, pulled out almost all at once.
So who makes the jerseys for them now? Because Nike pulled out. Because I was trying to figure that out.
I have no idea. I actually don't know.
Let me just check. Like I could check maybe last year. I don't know. Like picture of Mason McTavish. Like, is there anything?
Are they just using older Are they just using jerseys from last year?
Maybe I don't know. I mean, there's still there's still the actually no. Wait. No, there's no more Nike sign.
Oh,
When he was the captain. It's just
interesting.
Hockey
Makes sense.
Canada. And WHIF is on it now.
Huh. So yeah,
So,
like
yeah, I guess.
and I think we'll get to it in a second, but obviously there's a whole new host of board members now that have been voted in. And I really think it's going to be up to them and they know it themselves. Like I've seen the quotes from them. They know it themselves that they got a lot of work to do, I think, to restore faith back in Hockey Canada.
Yeah.
But since I brought it up, but there's 9 new board members for Hockey Canada, and the way it's going to work is that they're essentially like transitionary board members. They'll only be on for 1 year. At the end of 1 year, they'll be allowed to, I guess whatever the word, nominate themselves again. And so there's a few names on there. I can go through them all. Hugh Fraser, who was a judge, is no longer a judge. Grant Borbridge, Julie Duranceau, Dave Evans, Marnie Fullerton, Jonathan Goldblum, Marion Jacko, Andrea Poole, and last, Cassie Campbell Pascal. And essentially, Jeff Merrick had talked about it on 32 Thoughts Hockey Night in Canada that their first order of business is to find a new CEO or CEOs. He had suggested they might look at bringing in 2 people for that position. So again, like that's I don't know if there's anything else you want to add on Hockey Canada. It's always a tough transition to move on.
It is,
but
yeah. Honestly, not really. Because, 9 new names for the board, but it's more about what they're going to do than what we're seeing right now, right? So I guess we'll just give it time, see what decisions will be made. And honestly, when everything comes out for the 2018 case, I think that's the test. That's the bar of how effective this board is going to be.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Like it's their first test, especially for that board and moving forward and seeing how they're going to be handling things. Let's go to what you want to do first, the Leafs or the Habs?
Let's go to the Leafs, I think.
Okay.
We're saving a chunk of the Montreal one for Adam.
Yeah, that one point he wanted to talk about. With the Rangers, so they played 2 games since the last time I think we've recorded. The Rangers and the Capitals unfortunately lost both of them. We'll do the Caps game real quick because there's not a whole lot to talk about. Of course, Eric Gustafsson scored a hat trick. It's just unbelievable. That. Oh yeah, we definitely all called that. It was whatever.
There was some fight in them. It was 3-1. Yeah. 3-2.
I'm not particularly worried. I'll put it like that. I'm not particularly worried, but I just
really wanted Samsonov to get the win. Like that's the one thing for me. I really wanted him to get the win in Washington.
Yeah, no, that would have been definitely nice to see. And Eric Gustafsson had to go along and ruin that. He didn't have a great game, Ilya Samsonov. So I will say that. But I want to move on. I want to just go over this Rangers game. The streak is over.
Mhm.
Two of them, I guess, to be in
Yeah,
fact. Before the Rangers game, believe it or not, the Leafs had a point in their last 15 games. They went 12-0-3.
that's amazing. I think what was the last time they didn't have a point? That was like November, right?
October
Oh,
20
even
something.
further.
It
Wow.
was when, so it was funny enough. It was the last game I went to go watch. It was the Hall of Fame game against Pittsburgh. I'm just pulling it up here. That was sorry, it was November 11th, October. I don't know what I'm talking about. November 11th is the last time they lost.
Wow.
Wild.
That is quite the stretch. Like that's pretty impressive. But
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it wasn't a bad game they had. Like it was pretty good. It just, of course, Jimmy VC scored.
He scored a hell of a goal. The
Yeah,
first goal was nice.
like was he able to do that? Like, did he do that in Toronto?
No, he didn't do anything
No,
in
he didn't do it in
Toronto.
Toronto.
He did nothing in Toronto. With all due respect to Jimmy VC, he did a whole heck of a lot of nothing. And then they kind of ragdolled him in the documentary, but we won't get into that. That definitely, I'm sure he loved scoring that goal.
He did.
Um,
We also know someone else that loved that goal.
Mike.
Yes.
Yeah, he's the only other person.
So I didn't get to go to Burger Bar that day.
Yeah.
What was his reaction to the goal?
I don't think he realized it was Jimmy VC at first.
Okay. But what happens when he did?
He was laughing, as was I, because it was a little hysterical that Jimmy VC somehow did that. Whatever. It was a good game overall. The other thing that happened is the Mitch Marner streak has ended.
It's done.
The streak is over.
How do you feel?
I feel like the guy from when the Undertaker lost his streak. I don't actually feel like that, but that was my first thought. I see, the thing is, I thought of it like 3 days late, so it wasn't as funny. But I thought of it, so
yeah, I still found it really funny. Thank you.
The effort counts. So he had 11 goals, 21 assists in 23 games.
That's
go ahead.
Insane, by the way. But I don't know. I think for me, I was very confident. Again, modern streaks I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be Patrick Kane's. At least.
Patrick Kane had 26.
26. Yeah, I think that's the most since I think they gave the year like since like the last 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that'd been cool. But it's Mitch Marner, so that's unfortunate. No, I love him. Super, super cool. Super cool. We have a trade to announce.
We do.
It's the Dennis Malgin era in Toronto is it's unfortunately over.
The second Dennis Malgin era.
The second Dennis Malgin era, because he left for a year, and I don't blame him, to go play in Switzerland, and then now he is back. He came back. He's no longer here. This afternoon or late morning, I don't remember. The Leafs traded him to Colorado for Dryden Hunt.
Yes. Big guy. Checks a lot.
I want to spend merely not even 2 minutes on this.
All right. Well, I put this on the podcast Instagram. Who won the Dennis Malgin trade? The Leafs
or the Panthers?
The Panthers.
Oh, the Avalanche.
Yeah. I put all three teams.
That's a good one. I didn't think about the Avalanche, to include the Avalanche in that. I would argue the Panthers. The Panthers. It wasn't even a thought. It was the Panthers. Listen, man, Mason Marchman killed it for them. Like he went on to get a 4x4 contract. So it's
still been solid too in Dallas. You know,
he has been
good.
But again, such a minimal trade at the end of the day. Dryden Hunt, fourth line guy, easy, slot him in. And let's call it a day, with all due respect. Like, what, the fourth line is going to be Zach Aston Reese, Pontus Holmberg, and Dryden Hunt. Like, listen, man, I'm fine with it. If you don't like this trade, like if you don't like this trade, my question is why? It's so inconsequential. Why are you angry over this? Unless you're like a reporter, then you know what? Fine, you do you. But if you're actually angry over this, like, why? It's so inconsequential. Listen, maybe Dryden Hunt will get suspended like Kyle Clifford did in Game 1 of the playoffs. Like, I don't know. I don't know.
We don't know yet.
Let's just maybe he'll be our Kyle Clifford. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there, but that's it.
We'll see.
That's
I know
it
it
for
was
Dennis Mulligan.
It was a subsequent move too, right? Because Cali Yorncrook is back.
Oh, is it? Yeah,
yeah.
sure.
In practice,
Okay.
he replaced Mulligan on that second line.
Oh, awesome. They really need to find someone to sit in that spot. Now that Nick Robertson is out.
My
Well,
boy.
I guess yeah, that's unfortunate. I think we touched on it last episode, but he seemed to be fine there. We could
No
get
surgery,
better,
which is good. No surgery for him, but it's 4 to 6
still,
weeks.
yeah, it's a lengthy period of time. Listen, there's gonna be a trade. Someone's gonna they need to trade for a second line left wing. I think that's got to be their priority, which leads me to my next topic. JVR. I imagine, was it you who added this to the doc?
I didn't.
Under the
It was
Leafs
Adam.
thing? Okay. I wasn't surprised it was in the doc. I was surprised it was under the Leafs. But on 32 Thoughts Hockey Night in Canada, Jeff Merrick had said that JVR is available. He has 5 goals, 11 points this year, and Philadelphia is willing to eat some salary. Now, my question to you, Daniel, this is a former Maple Leaf.
He is.
Is he the solution?
No, I think he's going to go half retained to the Canucks because they need a winger. And Luke Shen is going to be going the other way.
Oh, my God. That'd be wild.
You know, he knows the system. He's still a quality guy. He liked his time in Toronto, played very well. It's just, the numbers just didn't make sense when you're getting John Tavares. So if he wants to come back, if it's a solid return, I'd love it. I'd really love it. I think JVR playing with John Tavares would be magic. He still put up 30 and 30 without a top line center. Because he was always playing with like Bozak.
Yeah, he was.
So
he was.
It could work. I think it could work if he does want to come. It's just weird. It's just funny. Like, it's going back and forth between Toronto and Philadelphia if this happens.
Yeah,
his entire career.
It's wild. It's wild. I'm not going to say I wouldn't take JVR, but I'd be more interested in exploring other options at first. Like, I think if JVR is your fallback plan, JVR is your fallback plan. Like, I'm okay with it. But if you have the opportunity to go elsewhere and maybe pay a little bit more and get a little bit more, I would go, and I'd rather go do that instead.
If it's not the Nick Foligno type of deal for JVR, I'm for it.
Daniel, if they pay a first round pick for JVR, I will lose it. I will lose my mind. That's not even fun. I'm not even joking. I'll be so mad. Like the Nick Foligno one, I was like disappointed. I would be full blown mad.
I remember what happened. I don't know why I tried to justify.
There were people who were justifying.
I was trying to do it myself too.
And then the awful thing is those same people justifying it were the same ones who were like, no, like complaining. I'm like, what are you complaining about? You're the one who asked for this and you got it, including myself. Whatever. Just it's enough. Enough is enough. Last thing on the Leafs before we move to the Habs is I wanted to give a little shout out to Trevor Moore. Again, that contract extension with the LA Kings. I'm going to pull it up. It is a 5-year deal at $4.2 million. I just want to show him because like this guy, I mean, like
small guy,
he was I was going to say undrafted, spent his time in the AHL and then, I'd argue, okay, he wasn't hugely impactful, but I'd argue he made an impact on the bottom 6 in the Leafs outside of scoring. And for his size, I'd say that's impressive. And then he was a piece in the Jack Campbell, Kyle Clifford deal. And so I just want to give him a shout out. That's it.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy for him. I'm happy he got what he wanted, and he's just been performing very well. I think like we talk about the Kings team overall that
Mm-hmm.
they just didn't make that big jump we thought they would, but they've been really solid with getting in these young guys and really giving them an opportunity.
Yeah, and the other thing with Trevor Moore is he's from California. Like we were talking about the Robertsons a couple episodes ago, both of them being from California and it being a good story and the other things to go along with it. But I think to have an LA guy or a California guy play for LA, I think it's just a good story
Yeah.
to say like these things we exist. They're like these things are possible. So that was a little harsh, but like these things are possible. So it's a cool story, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. Let's talk about the Canadians. There's three different things I want to go over. First one quickly. Mike Matheson is out indefinitely.
Mhm.
Unfortunate.
That's not what it says on the doc, but we won't say what's on the doc.
We won't say what's on the dock. Unfortunate start for his time with the Habs, and per Adam, when he was playing, he did look good. So that's unfortunate. And this one, I'd like to get your take on because I mean you've said you're the World Juniors guy, but I gotta ask. So they're saying, or I think it was Dreger who reported it. Dreger or LeBron, I don't remember off the top of my head, had reported that Slavkovsky is more than like is unlikely to go to the World Juniors. Should
I
he
think
go? Should they send him or should they not send him?
I don't know. I think it's just in terms of the usage, right? Because it's not like he's getting Shane Wright type of minutes.
True.
So he is playing and getting the experience he needs to keep on getting better. So if this is the situation they feel that just don't rock the boat, let him play where he feels he'll be most comfortable to help with his development, then I think just stay there. Because a lot of the times they say like, we play on best and see where it goes. It's important for the player's development and all of that. But this guy, remember, he played in the Olympics.
Yeah.
I think he already had that type of experience already playing with grown men, playing on the international stage. And I think one thing too is to forget is that we don't talk about is, finding that quick chemistry on the fly in such a short tournament. I
Yeah.
think he's already done that. So for that aspect of what will help with his development, I think if they're not going to send him to the AHL, if he's not going to go to Laval, I don't know why I almost said Hamilton Bulldogs. That's from a while ago, but just let him play in Montreal if that's what you feel is best, because it's not like they have a set top six. Like it keeps moving.
True. Yeah, the lines are always changing, and like I think that's just something that's to be expected with a team of their caliber at the moment. I think I'll go with that word caliber. But I think it's a good shift to the next topic. It's like they had such a strong, I don't want, not necessarily strong start to the season, but I think there was a lot of positives coming out of Montreal to start the season in terms of, you look at Suzuki and Caulfield in particular, you look at Kirby Dach, you look at the resurgence of Sean Monahan. And I don't necessarily think that's slowed down, especially with you look at Suzuki and Caulfield, but I just think we're now starting to see the time where things are slowing down a bit for them in terms of, winning games. Like they've lost 4 of their last 5 that they this is so mean, but I'm going to say it. They've handed Anaheim their second regulation win of the season, or second regulation win of the season. They're always going to be, they're a tough team to play against with the skill that they have. And they're not, I'm just looking at their schedule. They're on a like 7-game road trip. Like they're not back in Montreal until January 5th. of 2023. We're almost there. I just realized we are almost in 2023.
I know,
Crazy.
it's crazy.
What would you say are the like expectations?
I think right now is you already knew coming in that this is not a team that's going to compete. This is a team that not everyone is going to be there once the rebuild is done.
Mhm.
So I think what we're seeing is more of that, more of that reality that, you know, they're not there yet, but they'll have the pieces to get there. Like what I said before, the the answer's not in the locker room yet, but the way I'm seeing it is this is what we expected for them to play. I know that the Ducks game was really bad. That was a bad loss, but I think that's like they're just coming back down to earth for Montreal.
That's a good way of putting it. They're coming back to earth, and I think Adam would say the same in that like great starts to the season for certain players, but how long is that going to last?
Yeah, because
Right. And you look at that, like you look at up front and you say, oh, look at these guys, these like you look at X, Y, and Z and how they've developed so far. I think it's tough to look at the back end of Montreal and say the same thing. I just think it just needs more time. Like I think on the back end, there's answers that are there, but they're not answers yet.
yeah,
Right. These are things that are going to take time, right? Not everyone's going to step into the NHL and be the best player they can be. That's just never going to happen. You're not Connor McDavid. That's literally he's the only one who could probably do that. So I think you're right. Like things have come down to earth, and like I think the last time I had brought up the standings, they were like a point away from the New York Rangers. They are no longer a point away. If the NHL site would load for a real quick second, I would be able to tell you what it is. They are quite some ways away. They are 11 points away uh, from the New York Rangers, which is like half the league, by the way, half the
yeah,
league away from the New York Rangers. So that's, by the way, the Rangers, I just want to bring up, have won their last 7 games. They're on a 7 game
they
winning
are.
streak.
I think Pittsburgh's on that too, right? Yeah.
Pittsburgh, I guess they just lost their last game, but I will
Okay.
go double check if I could find their schedule.
But on
But
Montreal, yeah, like what I kind of feel is, yeah, we talk about like, yeah, they lost to the Ducks, but I think in a way it's weird to say like, isn't that expected? Like not to the Ducks, but I mean like, isn't expected you're gonna lose a bunch of games, but you're gonna gain enough experience. I think if hypothetically like, you say we beat the worst team in the league for what Montreal wants to do in terms of a rebuild, I think that's just a moral victory, right? That's not something that should factor into anything. I know that it sucks to lose. Players don't like to lose, but where Montreal's at right now, if you want to keep building, if you want to keep seeing where your picks go, you're gonna have to lose a bunch to get there.
that is true. That's a good point. And I guess that's what everyone wants.
Like, I'll bring it up. Mike Hoffman's not going to be here
Nope.
in Montreal when
Nope.
they finally emerge again, and that's expected. And it's not like we're gonna be talking about like, okay, like what kind of season Mike Hoffman gonna have. Like, no, we're gonna talk about like what Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield had.
Yeah, like I'm just looking at their roster at the moment. I don't think Jonathan Drouin will be around for much longer. Same goes with Evgeny Donov. Hoffman, yeah, for sure. Again, like I'm looking Dvorak, Yoel Armia. Again, I want Dvorak
Yeah,
maybe is the interesting one.
because he has term.
Because well, yeah, he has term, and I'm curious to know what Adam thinks. But Yoel Armia, I don't think Adam wants there
Yeah,
much longer. And then you look at the back end. I did not know Joel Edmondson had another year. Okay, that's
Yeah.
so interesting. Joel Edmondson will not be around much longer because Edmonton's apparently going to pay a first for him. So that's cool. Like you're right. There's just guys who are here who, when this team hits their prime, are not going to be around.
Mhm.
Just not going to be around. And that's reality.
The story for me is, and what I'm interested in is like the development of, like, hypothetically, Jordan Harris
Mhm.
instead of what's Joel Edmondson gonna look like in the next year or two.
Yeah, like and that's a good point. Like the questions we're asking about Montreal have shifted. It's what are these guys going to do in the next few years? No longer what are Joel Edmondson, what are like just list a player Mark Bergevin brought in and what is he going to do for us right now? It's not about now, it's about the future. And I think that's just the the reality of the team at the moment. And I don't think anyone's mad about it, to be honest.
I'm just always gonna love, because I just love that it was brought up in like the last few games. It wasn't the last game, but I love that we finally saw it again. Jonathan Drouin played center.
Listen, I'm
And
not gonna say I watched the game, but I heard that game did not go great.
that is something I will always remember, because like I remember he was the like first or second line center the first time I met Adam.
Oh my god. That is so that's brutal. That's brutal. Oh man. Okay. Let's wrap this show up. I
So
did not realize how long we were going for.
in conclusion, hopeful
Yeah.
losses for Montreal.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
you know what that's what we're gonna say. Hopeful losses. Is there anything else you want to add before I wrap this show up?
I think we've been good. Been going for quite a
Quite a
while.
while.
I don't know. Just shout out Jimmy VC again. Like
Of course. Thanks,
the
David.
ultimate
Thanks,
power
David.
move. I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, ultimate power move. Awesome. So again, thanks for listening. If you made it this far, thanks for listening to another episode of the 2-on-1 podcast. Make sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for I don't know how much longer. We probably be on TikTok. They're talking about like removing TikTok, so we'll see how much longer
Yes.
we're there for. And then you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to your podcasts, and like share it with your friends. That'd be cool. Just let them know.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay. See you guys.
Bye.